This event is being presented by Directors UK, so I just think it's a really interesting organisation that you've all got some information, I think, on your chairs about it, but they're the Professional Association for British Directors, and quite recently have opened their doors to students getting involved with them. So I just think it's really worth having a look. They run some really interesting events. You know, this is an example of one of the events, and they're trying to do quite a lot of sort of out of London stuff as well, which is the trend, which is brilliant, I think. So it's, you know, it's the phrase we all know, out of London. So moving swiftly on, I'd like to welcome our two directors, Nigel Keane and Andrew Gunn, who both have kind of prolific careers, working their way up through the media industry. We're going to show a couple of clips. First we're going to show some stuff of Nigel's, and then we're going to show some stuff of Andrew's, and then move on. I'm hoping that you're all really going to do the asking the questions, because if I ask questions that I want to ask. So really don't be afraid, even if you think your question is really silly, it probably won't be.
As long as it's not too difficult.
Yeah. Yes, actually. Yeah, think of a really difficult one for them both. Nigel's had nearly 30 years in the business, and with a 13-year career as a director, working on programmes like Hollyoaks, Coronation Street, Grange Hill, Brookside, The Bill, Murder Investigation Team, and so on and so forth. He's currently developing a one-off drama, which he'll illuminate on a little later on, I hope. And he also won the British Soap Awards in 2008 for the most spectacular scene, which I think is a really great accolade. And Nigel's actually going to tell us a little bit about the clip that we're going to see, which relates to that award.
Thank you. Hi everyone. This is just, when you get this lands on your desk, it's just a joy when you see a good old-fashioned car chase with an open-top car, ending up with the open-top car going off a cliff and the two protagonists spewing out the top, and then ending up with two actors jumping 50 foot off the cliff into water. And for once one can say thank you for health and safety, because health and safety thought it was safer for the actors to jump 50 foot off a cliff into water rather than onto an airbag, because they might bounce off the airbag and hurt themselves. So I said, yeah, absolutely right. These actors wouldn't have done it. They were all very young actors, very good swimmers, very good divers, but that was interesting. And so then we end up with a underwater sequence. So that's the clip. Well, the most difficult thing to try and achieve in a car chase is real speed, because there's nothing worse than watching a sequence, and it's particularly hard on soaps where you haven't got much time, and you see this car in a wide shot going past at 150 miles an hour or so, and you cut to the actors in the car going 2 miles an hour because you're on a low load or an A-frame. So it's important to just get cameras on the outside of cars, I think, get the actors in it, get private land, and get them going as fast as possible. It's also important to get as many shots as you can on the actual actors, as well, of course, as doubles, but a lot of that sequence on the private land, we were able to get them up to sort of 40 miles an hour in the actual cars. And also everything I asked for, which is unusual, I got, like a camera inside the car, which was just lovely for when you see the car going underwater and the bonnet bashing off, and with a red bonnet and the red car and the red imagery, the same as the red coat of the villain. So everything I asked for, I got, which is just tremendous. And then I'm also very lucky because filmmaking is a collaborative business, and the stuntman Steve Griffin that I had on that was just superb. And so he came up with a few ideas to make stunts more interesting, like the stunt on the top of the hill. Originally it wasn't on the top of the hill, it was at a crossroads. And he said, what about if we put it on the top of the hill and we put a car on one side, and so the big lorry has to go past it, and then the two cars can come by either side of the big lorry. What do you think about that? And of course I said, thanks very much. That will be just absolutely brilliant. because as a director, it's important to listen to people. You are the driving force in the end, but I absolutely got to listen to people. People have got good ideas, nick them, and use them. And so in that way, it was good. And after all that, having an underwater sequence, which we took a risk on in a real quarry, so they were real fish. So that was a thank you God moment, because usually that would have been done in a tank. But we rehearsed very thoroughly with the actors the weekend before. They were all good swimmers, so again I was lucky. They're young, they're good swimmers, so we rehearsed it before. We had brilliant divers who could keep getting quickly. It's quite hairy, because my favourite shot is the last shot, where she disappears. And it's just lovely how she just disappears and dissipates into the water. So we had our underwater camera, Hugh, just easing back, which obviously helps her disappear. And as she disappears, it's just lovely. You think, oh, well, that's all right. And cut and Christ, get her up. Because it's, you know, you think, God, it looks so realistic. Get her up quickly. So that was just a joy to do, and I think it worked really well. And then, of course, there's the last shot. If you follow Hollyoaks, I mean, is she really dead? Well, that's soap, and she's probably dead, but she isn't. And on that last shot, the purpose of the wide shot was just, this could be a nice lavish wide shot, or maybe it's someone watching. I don't know.
It's someone watching.
It is someone watching, because she turns up in the next episode.
I'm just going to introduce Andrew Gunn, who is an acclaimed and award-winning writer and director, which is quite interesting, both a writer and director of drama, comedy, short films and commercials, which is probably where you kind of often start out as a director, moving more into features. He's won several awards, 2 Royal Television Society Awards, and directed programmes such as Wild at Heart, which I think he's just finished directing now, Doctor Who, Survivors, Life on Mars, which must have been brilliant, I'm sure, to direct, Primeval, and TV movie Clay as well. He's also currently developing his own work, a psychological horror feature film, and he's worked with lots of actors across the years, who I'm sure he'll talk to you about. But first of all, we're going to run a clip. Do you want to introduce your clips? Or
yeah, I like Nigel, I've selected a bit of action. Why do we do that? I don't know, maybe it's more interesting for you to watch something that involves what in television drama is actually quite difficult to achieve, because you don't get an awful lot of time and you don't get the equipment you need, and you have to kind of improvise. So I probably had a little bit more money on this one, but a lot less time for this sequence. So there's a little bit of drama, some actors you might recognise. It's called Survivors. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, series 1 of a show called Survivors. With, some well-known faces in. You might recognise Sasha Parkinson from Coronation Street. She's now left the show, but this was before she went to Coronation Street. And Neil Dudgeon, who I think is in some kind of sitcom at the moment. I can't remember what it's called. Max Beasley, and a few others. But this was an action-adventure, human drama, post-apocalyptic. It all takes place after a virus has wiped out most of human life on the planet. And this is a little scene about a family who are imprisoned in their own farmhouse, but Max Beasley and his friend turn up and all hell breaks loose. So I had 1 day to shoot the attack on the car. Not a lot of time, 10 hours.
I mean, obviously, you know, the car, the sort of chase, the fire, etc., etc. I'm sure you can all imagine what it took in terms of the discipline to get that off the ground. But do you want to just sort of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. A lot of planning goes into that. Storyboarding with a proper storyboard artist rather than me doing little scribbles, little square boxes. So storyboard the whole thing, shot list the whole thing. Spend a lot of time with the action vehicles people, your first assistant director, the stunt coordinator or supervisor, your actors, a lot of planning goes into it. Now, when you're in the middle of shooting 2 or 3 episodes of drama and you've got to plan that, it means your days are very long. So you finish shooting one day and then you're into 3 or 4 hours of meetings about something that you might be shooting in 2 weeks' time, and it goes on and on and on. Wrecking the location several times, going through it over and over again, because they don't give you an awful lot of time. There's a lot of health and safety issues. It's very dangerous. You've got fire, Molotov cocktails flying. Although there's a prize for anybody that can spot the CG flames in that one of the shots in there, which was entirely CG. So if anybody can guess which shot was...
Does anyone want to have a go on there?
No, it wasn't. That was real.
Anyone else want to guess? No one brave enough to have a go. Go on.
The first petrol bomb he threw, which went over the back of the car and explodes, that's entirely CG. Even the bottle is CG, and the flames and everything. So, not usual to have the time and money to do that kind of thing in television drama. But in order to make that shot work, the producers agreed to do it CG. Obviously, all the elements are real flames, but the actual finished shot is generated in a computer. They weren't going to give me 2 days. To do that kind of thing over 2 days is quite expensive because of all the personnel involved, the specialist personnel, like stunts, action vehicles, the pyrotechnics, which are special effects, are all very, very expensive. So they're not going to pay for 2 days of that. It's tens of thousands of pounds. So it's all put in my lap. You've got 10 hours, 1 day to shoot it. On the day we turned up to do it, it's pissing with rain, and it's pissing with rain all day long. So, not much fun, very uncomfortable, and very difficult to do fire when it's raining. Explosions. We have this special gel, which is great, but they'd rigged in the bonnet, they'd rigged flame bars, what they call flame bars, and it's all connected to a gas tank. Again, very dangerous, but in the right hands, but it just wouldn't work. So they ended up smearing the bonnet for that second petrol bomb with this flammable gel, and that's a real petrol bomb that time, which sets the gel off. So they weren't going to do that because it could be quite dangerous, but we were so desperate that we just said to Max Beasley and the other actor, do you mind if we set the car on fire? And they said, no, go ahead. It did actually come through the ventilation vents, and they had their eyebrows slightly singed. But they were alive at the end of it.
Great. Well, thanks for that. 2 action-packed scenes. Just going back a few steps, you know, what do you believe, both of you, kind of the qualities that you need to be a director, and the overall role of a director on, you know, within drama? I don't know, do you want to, Nigel, do you want to?
Well, you're essentially, you could summarise a director as telling the story, basically. You get the script, and it's your job to translate that into shots and vision, and to work with the actors. So it's simply be summed up as telling the story. And as a director, I think you need to have a lot of common sense, a sense of humour is absolutely vital, and a passion for the project. That's very important. And in that way, it's essential that you get the script right. You've heard this all before, but it's absolutely true. You can't polish a turd. You can try, but there's one hell of a mess. So you've got to get that script right, else there's no point going out there. And some of the dramas that I've done, this can be quite difficult because you'll be working with your script editor, and if the script's not working for you, this can be dangerous in fast-paced dramas because they want the script out, even though it usually comes out late. One just has to send it back if you're not happy, and keep sending it back until you're happy with it. But
at the same time fitting in so that you don't become too much of a nuisance.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. But the script editor takes your point. It's a difficult balancing act,
yeah.
Isn't it, Andrew? It's a difficult balancing act, but you've got to get that script right. And overall responsibility of the director is in control. You're in charge. You're the leader of the team. At the beginning of the day, it's it's a wonderful job, but it's all, as an old producer once said to me, it's all down to you. And that's absolutely true. With your team, all important elements, which we'll probably talk about later, and with your actors, to make it work within increasingly tight schedules. That Andrew had to do in a day as an amazing piece of work. That's pretty normal for nowadays, just a day. That's extremely hard to do.
What's the, taking all that into consideration, these are sort of, young people starting out really, what's your advice in learning those sort of skills? Because it is very much a discipline, isn't it? And
yeah. I mean, I was just absolutely right about all those things. I mean, I just speak generally about the qualities you need, because you need many different qualities that will come into play at different times through the process. Your personal qualities, which is passion for what you do. You've got to love what you do, because it is actually, we don't work in A&E, we're not saving lives, we're not junior doctors, we're not doing a really important job like that, but it is a hard job. It's tough, the hours are long, it's difficult, and as a director, you're entirely on your own. You've got no friends, you are Billy No Mates if you're a director. So you've got to be very comfortable with yourself, very confident but not arrogant, willing to collaborate, passionate about what you do, willing to work very, very, very hard and not really get much reward, because you might get paid reasonably well. You don't get many people slapping you on your back when you do a good job, but they'll tell you when you've done it wrong and they'll make your life a misery. So you've got to be very thick-skinned, very dedicated, very persistent, and you have to do it with a smile on your face at all times.
That's
so those are the qualities you need. But those qualities change through the process, because the preparation before shooting is, if you like, a honeymoon period. The shooting is relentless and hard work, great fun if it's going well, a nightmare if it's going badly. You just want to curl up and die sometimes, go home, do something else, go and work in a library or behind a checkout. And sometimes you think you want to do that, it's so bad. Then, when you get into the cutting room, different qualities. You've got to be the diplomat, the politician, because you have to negotiate your vision with a lot of other people who all have their own ideas, and it's their show, it's not yours. So lots of different qualities. You need to be able to articulate yourself. So I don't know if I'm doing it very well now,
You are.
but you need to articulate yourself and communicate, because that's what you're doing as a director, whether you're doing it with images or sound or with your team, is communicating your ideas, your vision. It's a very grand term which I don't use very often, but essentially the vision that you have for something, you need to get that across to people at all stages of the process. So different qualities at different times.
Can we just pick up on that, the idea of a director's vision? How hard is it to kind of live by that when you're working on such a kind of tight schedule and on the quick turnaround soaps like Hollyoaks? Because I imagine a lot of people think, well, surely the director doesn't have that vision in that kind of creative way. But just explain how that maybe comes into play.
Well, it's much more difficult on a soap like Hollyoaks or Coronation Street, and I've done a lot of Hollyoaks, 102 episodes. It is, actually I've generally enjoyed. It is much more difficult because the story's set in stone, and actually in terms of actors are cast for you, so even the smaller actors sometimes you don't cast now on things like Hollyoaks. So that can be difficult, like when the producer says to you, this person isn't very good, make them look good. And again, there you've got to be the diplomat. You can't say, well, why did you cast him, you fool? You have to smile and say, okay. Or they say, oh, I mustn't go there. But so it is more difficult, but still in telling the story, you can still get your vision onto the screen in ways that you like to shoot things. If you like to, at times, have a great big cinematic wide shot, like I do. If you're somewhere nice, let's see it. If you like to move the camera around quite a lot, which I do, and shoot quite loose, I suppose, at times, because I want to see the body language of the characters, and choose your moments to go into mid-shots. And then just occasionally you might find a bit of the script which you think is quite important to punch into a close-up, and if you just do that occasionally, it has far more impact. So a producer once said to me, "I love that close-up. It's really hit me. Have you got more?" I said, "No. It's had an impact on you, so it's worked. That's exactly what I wanted." So that's difficult, and you might get a producer who's telling you that he wants more close-ups. It's all very difficult, but you have to go by your vision. And this has sometimes got me into trouble, but only shoot it one way, so it can only be edited one way. That's why I'm here today. That is my strong belief on certain things. And if the producer hires you, they've got to trust you. It's absolutely vital.
Nobody's really interested in director's vision, particularly in television drama. So never really talk about it. That's for you. That's for your imagination, for your mind. Share it only with your allies and your key people, your HODs, DOP, maybe your first AD, sound, design, art director, all those people, because they're all creative, enthusiastic people. You don't want to share that necessarily with your cast, for example, because that'll just freak them out. They'll think they have to act in a certain way or do a certain thing to help your vision. Just don't even talk about it. Don't talk visuals or vision with actors. And most of the time I would avoid doing it, particularly in television drama, with your producer. Unless that producer has hired you because you do a certain kind of thing and they like it, then it's worth talking about. But you have to do the vision thing quietly, under the radar. Do something interesting visually, because vision covers everything. It covers the way that you get a performance out of an actor, the level of performance, the style of performance, whether it's naturalistic or heightened, the way that you shoot, the way that you cut, the way that you sound and image together. That's all to do with vision. And to help you with that, there's a whole bunch of other people. So the key to getting your vision on the screen is to communicate that with people that you think are going to help you with that, that understand what you're trying to do. So this is where it becomes difficult, is finding the time to do that and the words to do that. But the thing is if you're working on a show that's got 3 or 4 other directors on it, and you're second or third in, you're not the first director, you know, you're going to have to fit in with what somebody else is doing. The show will have a look or a tone about it that you have to fit in. So you can take your signature shots or the way that you work and do your thing, do the thing that is you, but you have to sort of, remember you're working in television drama. Film is completely different. The director is king, and if you've written your script and you're going to direct your script, all that matters is what you think and what you want to do. And it's just getting there that's maybe either the frustrating thing or the easy thing. The TV drama, you're working for somebody else, somebody else's show. They own it, they're producing it. So director's vision, yes, I like to think that my work says a lot about me, and it does. I know it does, because I decide where the camera goes, what size the lens is, what the shot is, how it's going to cut together. And Nigel is absolutely right. I only shoot in a way that will allow that scene to be maybe cut at the very most two ways, and always avoiding the close-up where the producer will expect it to be.
And always give them something to take out.
This is your vision. This is the director's vision, and that's why it can be like that. If you didn't have a vision, you could cut it together 12 different ways. And also, coincidentally, with schedules, it's not a bad idea, because you haven't got time. You haven't got time to do things again and again, and also you don't want to exhaust the actors. So that's another factor, and I'll cut my cloth quite tightly to that, so that that's my vision. I'm a director, but yeah, Andrew's quite right. If you want to be the king, you've got to go along the feature film route. I think that's absolutely right about the director's vision.
Just so we can get a sort of idea, how many people in the room are kind of looking to go into, you know, really specifically want to be directors within TV drama, or is it kind of much more show of hands? Right. Okay.
And how many want to do films? Oh. And how many of you are very wealthy? No, that's cool.
I mean, I think
it's interesting, isn't it?
It is, because we were talking before about what it takes to be a director, and we were saying how we don't want to put people off, but also you want to tell them the reality.
In another 10 years, the balance would be quite different.
Yes. Yeah.
How to think about that?
I mean, I think, you know, the sort of reality of becoming a director, I think that's an interesting area. I don't know whether either of you want to sort of talk about it.
The crossover now is becoming blurred, actually. If you look at TV drama, you'll see a lot of feature film names there. Paul McGuigan started as a feature film director. Shane Meadows is directing TV. Somebody the other day I came across who was, they've kind of dropped down. And the reason they've dropped down or across, I don't know, into television drama, which actually is a tougher gig than directing a film. If you can direct high-end, popular TV drama, you can kind of pretty much, if you're good at what you do, you can direct anything. It isn't easy, because even on a reasonably budget or even a low-budget feature film, you know, you've got a little bit more time to think and prep and shoot and all that. And you've got a bit more control, a lot more control. But the reason those people, particularly Paul McGuigan and others like him, have dropped down into television is that it's increasingly difficult to get films made in this country, and even getting over to the States and working there. You know, when I eventually gave in to going there, because I wanted to go in at a certain level. Forget that. You have to start. You have to start at the bottom. It's very few directors can come in at a certain level. Very, very few. You all have to start somewhere, and it's usually on the same shows. So all the directors in the room, you'll all be fighting each other for the opportunities one day soon. But the good thing about Hollyoaks and other shows like it is that you have complete creative. Absolutely.
When I was there, and still when I was there,
freedom as a director.
Absolutely.
There's your script. You do script meetings. You've got your cast. Everything's there. It's all there in the building. It's like a factory, and it's difficult because it is a conveyor belt of, you know, television drama. But if you're going to have, if there's any place where your vision will work for you and you'll be allowed to try it out, it's on Hollyoaks.
Still the case.
You know, but if you go and do something like Life on Mars or Survivors, then not so much. You have to sneak your way through that whole process.
Can you explain why that is? Just, I know.
Well, because
that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I have my own views on that, but you kind of know the place better than I was only there for about 12 months. So.
Yeah, no, but it's just interesting what you just said, that on Life on Mars. I'm fascinated by that. You've had less go out and just do it. I find that quite disturbing.
On a show like that, you watch like a hawk. The further you go up the ladder...
Is the producer on the floor all the time?
Not really, no. Once you've got started, then they trust you. But there's a lot more people involved in telling you what they expect.
And watching the rushes?
Yeah.
And giving you feedback? I've done one job. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's high profile.
And they give you notes. Yeah. It's high profile, a lot of money, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
So...
Another pressure.
Huge responsibilities the further you go up. And retaining vision is trickier. It can be done, but, and just going back to the time issue, is that one of the things that can affect your vision, the way you want to block a scene and shoot it and edit it, is the time and money that you've got. You know, it takes time. So you've got to be able to gauge the time and balance vision against the reality of turning up every day to do a job of work with 10 people looking at you, who are all called producers.
This is where you really hope you have a good first assistant who's on your side, don't you think? For what you try, you can only do so much, but this is on the early stage of the process. You want a good first assistant. I was a first assistant, so that's my background. Who's there? Should be there to try and get what the director wants. That's what the first should do. And in those early meetings, you desperately try to negotiate your time with the first assistant to say to him or her, I need 6 hours on this, and that's an important process. You can say, look, I'll do that. I can do that quickly. I can do that in one shot. And do that. Please negotiate to try and get the maximum time on the scenes that you know that you're going to need the time for. Only so much, because there's a budget at the end of it. But that's another important thing as a director in the modern world, of negotiating that time with your first. Because I don't know, you usually have a meeting before you start shooting, and I don't know if certain jobs they do, and they go through every day and say, can you finish? Do they still do that on the job, on the higher end dramas? Yeah. Or I once had a meeting at the BBC and they didn't ask, can you finish? They just asked, would anyone get hurt? It was a bit odd. But when I was at first, try and negotiate your time. But Andrew's absolutely right. You've got, as part of the director's responsibility, to tell the story in the time that you're allotted. And if you keep not completing, you're fired.
What about TV commercials? Because I also TV commercials are interesting. Seems to be a very
Yeah. I mean, that's a completely different world, industry, discipline as well. Completely different. Some TV directors do commercials, but when you're shooting TV, you're in a contract for 4 months, 5 months, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes it's 3 months. Depends how many episodes you're doing. So, if you're lucky, you'll get 2 jobs in within a 12-month period. 1 year, you might get 2 dramas in. Finding the time to go and do a commercial, because doing commercials, you've got to be available. So I think if you're a new director, fledgling novice, whatever you want to call yourself, you need to decide where you're going to start. Do you want to go into commercials? Because you're going to have to put so much focus and energy into one thing. When I started, I'd spend myself around too thinly. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do movies, I wanted to do short film, I wanted to do commercial, I wanted to do prop promos, I wanted to do anything. And you can't do that. You have to kind of, and then when you've got a few things under your belt and you've established yourself, then people will start listening to you and you can start moving. So a lot of commercials directors will go and do films. It doesn't happen so much the other way around. But the line between now doing commercials, TV and film is becoming blurred. And one of the reasons that's happening is because of technology. The cameras and the screens that people are watching TV drama on are almost the size of cinema screens now. So you can be a TV director like David Evans, who directed the Harry Potters. TV director, one of the best Harry Potter director. 10 years ago that wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have even seen a TV director to do that franchise. Movie, big movie name only. But now it's becoming blurred. Feature film directors go into TV and do a bit of TV, then go and do a film. TV directors go do a film, come back to TV, and if you can manage to get a commercial now and again, but that is a separate thing. I mean, if you want to direct commercials, I think you have to concentrate on that until you've got a good showreel and got a good reputation. While you're doing it, develop some projects. So when somebody asks you, have you got a feature film you want to do? You go, I want to do this, and then you're into film. But film and TV is not as well paid. The hours are long. It's hard work. You have to put up with a lot of abuse. A lot of frustrations. Commercials is a bit more glamorous, you get paid well, and if you keep working you can make a lot of money and you get a lot more time, and there's more platforms as well. So I've done a few commercials and had a lot of fun and earned good money while I'm doing them, but it's difficult to fit in if you want to do the longer form things like film and TV, because you're not available when you're doing those things. Yeah. HBO.
Great.
Yeah.
Have we got any questions for either of our directors?
I'd like to know if I've got any acting experience themselves.
I do it every day on set. Yeah. You do. You have to perform every day on set. Yeah.
It's like being a teacher.
That's a very good
You're
answer.
behind the camera, but you are performing every day.
You assume a persona.
You kind of have to, yeah. So I'm not being funny, but yes.
And in extreme situations, have you had to
portray yourself as a certain kind of person just to get, you say it's all compromising diplomacy. Do you have several heads that you have to sort of evolve and put on kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a strange job, directing. I mean, you know, you reinvent yourself every day, and you know, it is a bit like that. You can drive yourself mad being a director, because you know, it's all about, you are on your own, and it's like what you want to do as opposed to what you need to do, what you'd like to do as opposed to earning a crust, and you spend your whole life, you know, you don't have a job basically. You don't have a job. Nobody knows what you do or how you do it, and you're on your own. You've got no friends. It's tough. It is tough. It's tough, and you're always away from home, in some flat or a hotel, or you know, it's nomadic and solitary. So you know, you can end up speaking to yourself, can't you? After a while.
Yeah, you're right. That's absolutely right.
So you got to love what you do and like your own company.
For Nigel and Andrew here, you know, what was your first break into the industry, and how did you get that?
Right. Well, I left university. This is just luck, as you've asked. I left university with a degree in Eastern philosophy.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing you need.
That's the other essential element to being a director. Because I was just interested in different isms, and everyone in my family went to university, so well, that's what I have to do. But I always wanted to make films. So I went down to London and wrote off to hundreds and hundreds of companies saying I'd like to get into the business. I can't remember what the exact job was at the time, I can't remember. And they all wrote back saying, no way. So I went down to Kensington High Street, where there was a market where I used to buy some clothes, and I walked up to Brook Street Bureau, do they still exist? Temporary job market, and walked in the door to get a job because I was broke. I wasn't giving up my television ambitions, but I had to get a job. I was going to do anything. And as I walked in the door, the phone rang, and it was TVAM. It was the breakfast television station at the time, and they said they wanted a postal clerk for 2 hours for the afternoon. So I said, was that TVAM? You won't remember that. That was before GMTV. Now 83. So I said, is that a television company? I'll do that. So that's how I got into the industry. Then I did that for 2 days, and then they said, we got this dreadful job where you photocopy all the scripts. You come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. You work till 11 o'clock. You give Anne Diamond and Nick Owen their tea at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you photocopy all the scripts, running around the newsroom to the main studio and to the news studio. Would you do that? Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was on about £60 a week. I was the lowest paid person in the whole company, but I didn't care. I was in a television company, and I did that for 3 years. At that point, I had a job as what's called a very operations assistant, which is like an assistant floor manager, which I used to do when the person who was doing that was off. This, for a young person, this is just amazing. You know, it was exciting, it was interesting, it was a studio. I met some very interesting people. You know, like I'll never forget, in my capacity of How Many Sugars, I met Frankie Howard, who is, I hope some of you might know Frankie Howard. I offered him a cup of tea, and he said, "Oh no, dear, I have this," and he produced his little his bottle of whiskey. So this is all cool. And then I applied to Central Television in Birmingham, and I learnt as a third assistant, second assistant, first assistant, I was working on dramas. You know, a lot of that is just getting the actors onto the set, or as a second assistant planning all the logistics. The first assistant, when you get to that level, that's more exciting because you get closer to the goal that I wanted to go. So from that little bit of luck, that developed. And I worked on shows which like Boone and Soldier and Chancer. And then Central Television was closed down. We discovered one day that where the studios were, there was a car park on the map. So that's how we found out it was closing down. So I went freelance as a first assistant, and I then worked for 9 years as a freelance, and then eventually begged the producer to give me a job as a director on Hollyoaks in 1999. So that's my routing. I've never had an agent. I've never really stopped working much during that time, but I've had at least 3 or 4 times, and about the 5th one as we speak actually, where I'm about to go bankrupt. I've had that a few times, and then luckily, what else can I do? You know, I don't know what else I could do, but the phone rings. So I suppose that sums up the perseverance of the. But I've had 3 or 4 times in my life where I'm absolutely bust, and luckily the phones rang. So my background was very much from the floor, and that first little bit of luck.
But I mean, I think in the main, you know, that there is the element of luck, but it's also, you were talking before, and I think that'd be quite interesting to talk about that kind of determination, you know, and that drive to do that. Yeah, there is an element of luck, but that goes with that.
Oh, and at one point, I hate to admit this, at one point, I did a bit of creeping. I was working on Hollyoaks. I was the first assistant. I'd been the first for a while. They asked me to train up the staff first assistants, and I thought, I'm putting myself out of a job here, really. But I was working with this director who had a very, I won't mention his name, very close ear to the producer, Joe Hallows. I thought his work was dreadful, but I knew he was close to the producer, and my partner said, creep. I said, all right. So when I was first in for him, and I used to think I was an okay first, I just sort of buttered him up a bit and kept saying how wonderful the producer was, and kept saying how much I wanted to direct. So I did a bit of that, really, and so I could get the ear of the producer. And so I got that great break on Hollyoaks in 1999, and then I did that for about a year. This is another part of the business, and then I fell out with the producer totally because I was young and callow and argued about an edit, which you have to learn. Sometimes you just got to let it go. You got to keep your mouth shut. I was young and I just started direction and I loved it, and the producer wanted to change this edit, and I said, no, I'm not changing it. I'm going home. So I went home.
And never came back.
And I said, according, and this is pathetic, I said, according to the contract, the final say on matters of this is the executive producer, not you. I'm not changing it. I really cared about it. It was just a very obvious shot of an aeroplane taking off, and you've got the camera underneath, you know, and the wheels come up on the aeroplane, and it was being cut very short. So this was really stupid of me. I said, I'm not doing it. So I went home, and half an hour later, the producer rang up and said, the executive producer agrees with me, and I, like an idiot, said, well, how extraordinary, do it yourself. You know, that's passion. And I was out of Hollyoaks then and would never cross that threshold again. But then there's another bit of luck. You see, Brookside's made in the same building. The producer of Brookside had seen some of my Hollyoaks, liked the work, gave me a job without ever seeing me. So I went in to see him 6 months later, said, thanks very much, why have you given me the job? He said, I really like your work, and also I can't stand the producer of Hollyoaks who says I should never employ you ever. This is some of the madness of the business, just to let you know about all that. But yeah, because you've got a passion for it, I'm now just about learnt, sometimes keep your mouth shut.
If you want to direct, your calling card is not your qualification. And this is the most important thing I can say today. From my point of view, I think this is right, because I went through the film school route, years of art school. I mean, 5 or 6 years of fucking art school. It took me a while to figure out that actually the qualification doesn't mean anything. The experience of being at film school and making things and striking up collaborations and friendships that might go on is a good thing. Being there and being creative and making things and being in that environment is great. The qualification in film and television doesn't matter unless you want to go and get a job where the qualification is important. I can't think of anywhere, to be quite, maybe the BBC, but you're better off with a degree in English if you want to go and work in any job in the BBC. Get yourself a degree in English or philosophy or Eastern religion, you know, and then, because they want academic qualifications at the BBC.
They didn't want me.
But make stuff. The thing, your calling card as a director or anything, an editor, a camera person, any of those things, is showreel. piece of paper with certificate of whatever doesn't mean anything to anybody. They want to see what you can do. So show them something. Yeah. Take them a film. Say, I made this. That's what will get you through the door. And if it's good, you'll get through the door and you'll make another one, and keep doing it. The good thing about you people is you can do it from your bedroom. Yeah. I couldn't do that. I had to go beg, borrow and stealing when I wanted to make short films. I had to apply for money. And I actually spend months trying to get money to make a film. You know, you can go and buy a camera and do it yourself. So do it. That's the thing.
Absolutely right. Definitely, I couldn't concur more. Make a short film. There are places like Hollyoaks who will take directors on from a good short film. Yeah. I haven't got a short film, and when I'm doing lots of continuing drama over the years, I myself have realised, I kept thinking, I've got to make a short film. So at the moment I've just written a short film, and I myself am hoping I can get some mates of mine to make a short film so I can shove that on my show reel, because that would be absolutely my thing. So a big thing, definitely, and especially with the equipment nowadays. Do your own short.
I think the whole industry's been democratised with the equipment and the internet. You know, it used to be a very difficult industry to get into, and I think in some ways that's a good thing. In others, it's not such a good thing. But I think any way of making a film is just make the film. Just make sure it's a good film, because there's a lot of shit out there as well. There's a lot of shit. You've got to wade through it to get to the good stuff. So if you're going to make a short film, then do it quickly, think about what you're doing, write a good script. Going back to what Nigel said, the script is the thing, it's not the movie. Turning up every day and pretending to be a director is not what it's about. The script is king. The script is the thing that makes the movie. Make sure the script is airtight and brilliant, then the film will be better than that. And any way of making it, if it's your mates or whatever, it's great. You know, if you can get 500,000 people to give you £1 each, then you've got a budget, a very good budget.
There's a question over here.
Sorry, I suppose it was just it was really interesting that Nigel mentioned about Hollyoaks and the short film, because I suppose the kind of view that I had was that television, broadcast as it is today, is still very hierarchical. So, but I mean, so you're saying that that isn't the case with new technology, if you're able to go out there and shoot something and put something together, actually people will look at you, will be given
yeah.
You've got to get noticed, you know, and it is hierarchical. When you're doing our job, when you get to this level, and there's levels above and there's levels below and there's levels to the side, but when you get to popular or high-end television drama, particularly, and that's what we're mainly talking about. Yes, you're working for somebody else. You've been hired to do a job, and you have bosses. They're called producers, and they're called executive producers. The executives are the bosses of the producers, and that goes right up to the controllers of drama, and they're all watching you. All of them are watching. You might not think it, but they're all watching you. And you're answerable to them. Your duties and responsibilities are to yourself, the show, but also to them. That's where it changes. That's where you lose control. You know, unless you've written the TV drama, then you might have more control, and you might also be a producer. That's quite rare. That's one thing that's rare in TV. It is the writer also directing and or producing. Because that's a lot of power in one person's hands, which broadcasters are a little bit nervous about. So you'll see with TV, mainly, on the whole, writers, producers, directors, and never the twain shall meet, unless you're, Hugo Blix or somebody like that, and big respect to the guys that can do that, because it's a tough job writing and directing TV drama. I was 10 when I decided I wanted to be a director. What age you were?
Very young.
10-year-old schoolboy when I decided I want to be a director. Still trying.
I was young.
Still trying, kind of. And the reality, the dream and the reality are quite different, but it is a great job. It is a great job. It's a good gig if you can get it. But if you want to direct, if you want to produce, if you want to edit, if you want to be a camera person, make things, make the short films. If you haven't got anything to show for yourself, you aren't going to go anywhere, really. I don't think so. And you can do it these days. You know, that camera up there, you can make a movie on that camera right back there. You can make a film on that. So make a film, make a good film, and show it to a producer. And I kind of turned my nose up at Brookside and Hollyoaks for several years. As I said, I wanted to go in at a certain level. And it is a difficult choice to make once you're in, because there are different routes in TV drama, and you can go that way and go, oh, I wanted to go that way. So you have to manage your career. But if you're new and you want to break, go and do Hollyoaks. Go and do it for a year. They'll pay you really well, and you'll learn lots, and you'll be able to do what you want to do, because it will never be the same again. Because when you go to the next thing, you won't be allowed to do what you want to do. So go and do it. Make the short films and go and do Hollyoaks. Do it.
Great. I think we're going to really have to draw to a close now, because we're probably going to run over. It's gone very quickly. Can I just, thank Nigel and Andrew for their time, and hopefully you've all kind of gleaned a little bit about what it is to be a director. Don't give up the dream and keep going with it, really. And don't abandon Hollyoaks, I think is the lesson.
I have.
Thank you. If you could just...